she's getting her paid and stuff as far as I know. She's always in there snacking on something.
She can get a...
Somebody just said 4 o'clock.
Yeah, she had her last.
Alrighty, I've got 4 p.m. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the first FY 2018-2019 Budget Development Workshop.
Carol, did you make cookies?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, this is our first workshop of the year. Just kind of kicks off in our year and lays out the budget process, and so that the board and the public are aware of the events and that will lead up to the adoption of the 2018-19 budget in September. So this is the first of 3 workshops that the board will hold during the budget process. Significantly, this approved calendar includes 2 additional, and it's a patch here, workshops and public hearings, including those required under state law. So at this point in time, I will turn it over to Miss Brandy. She's got a little PowerPoint program or a PowerPoint program that'll begin our discussions.
All right, so as you're familiar with, the basis of our 18-19 budget is the 5-year forecast that gets approved each year as part of the final budget. So we use that as a starting off point to set our 18-19 budget. And then we will continue to monitor the financial reports each month as they come out and look at each line item and make adjustments on an as-needed basis based on those financial reports. So we're looking good right now with our state and local revenues. They're being collected as we're budgeting them. The overall favorable condition of our economy right now is positively impacting those revenues. And we're planning for 18-19 to hold our operating expenses, office supplies, utilities, pest control, those kind of things at the current same level as we are in the current fiscal year. Our current assumptions on the 17-18 budget is that we'll be providing a 2% COLA to employees with the exception of the firefighters. They have the different agreement that was with the collective bargaining agreement. That the increase in CHP for health insurance will be absorbed by the board. Any mandated increase in FRS rates will be absorbed. 2% constitutional officer increase. The cost allocation transfers that we talked about last year, which is the administrative functions that come from the funds like the road department and the building department, we will continue those. We did that study in 15-16, so we'll use that figure that they calculated for 2 years, and then we may look at getting an updated study since those funds, those enterprise funds and the road funds, special revenue funds, they're growing. Everything is growing right now. And we also continue to transfer money into the Revenue Stabilization Fund.
And just to reiterate, that the deal the firefighters got is not any better than anybody else. So they're not getting some special raise or anything.
No. Randy, I have a question already.
Go ahead.
2% COLA for the board, if you'll back up, plus CHP increase, plus FRS increase, that's going to be a much bigger increase than 2%, right, in total?
Possibly, and this is our first shot. It's very early on in the process. We have not met with the individual constitutional officers, so as we find out what those actual numbers are going to be as far as CHP and FRS, there may be some adjustments, but this is our plug-in number that we use for a budget to start looking at things preliminarily. So
that's what Greg is asking. If the board gets a 2%, and then plus CHP and FRS, does Cheryl get the same thing?
It depends on what we sit down and work out with her when we actually get to the point where we look over her budget line by line and she tells us what she needs.
Well, CHP is going to go up 6 to 8%, so if you only give me 2%, then it's going to go all to CHP and I give no COLA. That's my question.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about when we sit down with each constitutional officer when they actually turn in their budget request in May. Like I said, this is a filler number for now because just as expenses could go up, they could also go down, so we have to have a target number to start with. So these are current assumptions.
We've been hitting, even doing all these things here, we've been hitting around 2%. Some of the constitutionals will be just over 2%. Some will be just under, but we normally hit, even with a 2% COLA, under 2% increase.
So you're saying if their overall budget is X, that's going to include capital outlay, it's going to include all kind of stuff. You're going to bump, you're assuming that whole number,
Total operating budget.
total operating budget's going to go up 2%. So it may absorb
Yeah,
that.
we got to have something to start with.
I understand.
And 2%, and we've been able to hold fairly well. Last year, I think the sheriff got a little over 2%, so did the clerk. I think everybody else hit pretty much around 2%. And,
we went too
the
far.
sheriff this year, as I was telling y'all earlier, is going to give back 4% this year, so he don't need any money.
So
You missed that, didn't you, Jerry?
Yeah.
he's going to get his chance in a minute.
Dan's idea.
So some of the challenges that we're looking at in the general fund for 18-19 are, now that we have burned through that surplus that we were intentionally trying to not be holding on to, we need to be able to control our expenses and function within the available revenue we're collecting each year.
And that burn didn't come at a slow burn. It got torched like a gunpowder. Right?
Yeah, last year we had a little bit of torching going on, and we talked about that a little bit when I did my financial update. We had some things that were genuinely not anticipated when we approved the final budget, and they snuck up on us, and we do have a plan specifically for the EMS revenue and the write-off, the large write-off we had to do at the end of the year, to kind of monitor that a little closer, and we'll have time to make operational adjustments mid-year instead of that sneaking up on us at year-end. So right now, that's our challenge. We've got to live within the revenue that we're collecting. And we also, with the addition of the trails that the state is providing, the new biking trails, hiking trails, we're going to have to maintain those, and so we're looking at a potential increase in some personnel. It's going to be over 20 miles of trails by the time it's finished, and somebody has to blow those and mow them and keep the trees cleared off of them, so we're going to have to look at how we're going to get that accomplished.
Have you looked into subbing that to somebody?
Well, we're just beginning that process.
Just now.
I've had it on my list of things to do, and I've got some ideas, and that's.
Because it's not like an ongoing thing. You know, they need to go out 4 or 5 times a year and blow them
No,
out.
during the growing season, naturally, you got to hit it more, because we've been doing ODDT, so we've got a schedule there. We have to transfer that to this one as well, so that adds. And right now, I'm just doing the existing recreation staff. So,
lawn service, maybe.
Yeah, and so we're looking at the possibility of maybe adding it to ESG or
Promised land.
Or, well, the problem is we gotta have equipment there and all that good stuff. So we're looking at a lot of different options.
Not to get too far off the path, but my point is, this equipment doesn't need to be used all the time. You know what I'm saying?
No, not all the time. But where the problem's going to be is we are going to have enough trail to keep, especially during the summer, keep a crew going between OBBT and Capital C. They'll stay going at all times. Because it'll get thrown up like.
By the way, CRTPA voted today. Their number 2 transportation alternative project is a trail from 98 on Spring Creek Highway up to, is it all the way to Bloxham, I think? It's like something $1 million. The only project ahead of it is a sidewalk over on Bloxham Highway over in Tallahassee. So we're number 2.
Good.
Bloxham
Woodville Highway?
No, right there on Highway 20, where it comes into Tallahassee.
Okay.
Isn't that Bloxham?
Yeah.
Bluntstown Highway, sorry. There you go. Isn't that what I said?
At this point, also, this is where we, I know the throw a little curveball in here, but I believe the sheriff or Jan is going to get up and tell us about what y'all are anticipating for next year. Anyway, no joke. Soon as Jared gets back, he has some potential increases in personnel as well for next year.
Well, and that's perfect timing because we're moving into the sheriff's fund.
Yeah.
So we have been capping that jail bed revenue at $1.8 million each year for budget, even though we know we're going to collect Perfect timing, Jared.
Jared. Come on up, stay and podium.
Even though we know we're going to collect closer to $3 million or a little bit more, which we did in 16-17. So there is the potential that they will be very near fund balance at the end of the current fiscal year. We're thinking somewhere between $400,000 to $600,000 below. So certainly within the 18-19 budget year, they'll meet fund balance. And there's been much discussion about what to do once the sheriff's fund meets fund balance. And David and I met with Jared and Jan this week and talked about what he needs and what he thinks, because he's an expert on the ICE program and that particular revenue. So he's going to give you a little bit of a brief overview of what challenges he's dealing with right now as far as local corrections and ICE corrections.
Thanks, Brandon. We definitely are standing steady with our ICE people right now. Today we have 112 ICE inmates. This January 3rd, 2017, the day I took office, we had 59. So it's about an 85% increase. The only problem is what I talked with David and Brandy, is the population for the locals is also going up, and they have to be kept separate. Locals and ICE are in totally different wings, totally separate. So when I took office January 3rd of 2017, we had about 126 locals. Today we average about 170, which is about a 35% increase in locals. Now, when we built that, if y'all remember right, when we built the local or the addition to the jail in 2004, it was a 200-bed addition. So we're staying about 170 right now, which we still got room, and we can make adjustments as we need, and we also work well with the state attorney's office trying to keep these people moving in and out. We also have the work camp program, which has about 30 inmates in it. Those inmates are sentenced to the work camp program. They never step foot in jail. We don't feed them. We don't clothe them. We don't pay for their medical. So when we get those people sentenced to the work camp, that's 30 people that would be in the jail that never step foot in jail. So it saves the county taxpayers and us a lot of headaches. So
I asked Jared, is that program that you and I had talked about, is it being maxed out? Is there any more people we could take out of the jail and do
well,
something else?
the judge has to sentence them to that. So
County
the judge knows that we always want work campers. So if they qualify according to her, she'll sentence them to that. So
Nonviolent, they got
yeah, and it's a program we started a couple years ago. Actually, I was a part of that when I was the jail administrator. So it actually reduces the amount of prisoners we have locally in our jail population, which saves us money. So, but that number is going up. So we're at 170. We were at 126 a year and a half ago, and we're continuing to arrest people. So
what's the crime that's most people are the increase cause? Drugs or?
Well, it's drugs, and that's why we're cracking down. We're cracking down on drugs. That's why that number's going up. And if you keep up with it, you'll see that most of those people that are in jail are in jail for drugs and stuff like that. But eventually they'll go to prison. But it's continual effect. So it's going to go up. But I think we're good for a couple years as long as we keep, the relationship with the state attorney, that we can put more people on work camp and keep going like that. But that is something we're going to have to look at eventually, because once we run out of room for the local population, that ICE population is going to have to either really condense down, we're going to lose money of that, or we're going to have to do away with the ICE program. So,
not to harp on this too much, but what percentage of those locals are going to go on to state prison and get out of the county system?
Probably about 15-20%. Okay. But that's a time period. They may stay in jail for a year prior to going to court or longer.
Appeal or anything like that, y'all have to take care
That's
of
right.
Well, our jail bed revenue, you say, is about $3 million?
Yes.
And we got him budgeted at 1.8?
Yes.
So you're contributing 1.2. It's to our advantage currently to bring all the ICE people in that we can get.
Absolutely.
So if we can, as long as that holds, we're in really good condition.
We're in real good shape with ICE. I meet with them every week. We have conference calls every week, and we have a good relationship with them right now, I can tell you. But it's not it's not just it's a lot of work. It's not free money.
Can you talk with them and say if you will guarantee me another 100 beds that we'll build another facility to accommodate the increase?
We've tried that before. They're very hesitant to do that, but if the time comes, when the time comes, we may want to consider doing that.
One of the things that we talked about, one of the things we talked about this last week was the jail bed and the jail bed funds, and also with the political environment that was coming on. Right now, everything's good, but in 2020, if there's a change on the national scene, that could severely impact what ICE does. Like before. So our idea was on that is to see how let's bank basically, let's bank all this ICE money at this point in time instead of, use it for some operational increases here and there and whatever, but let's hold firm to our $1.8 million, but yet use ICE, keep those ICE funds protected. So we build up our reserve, and then if it all of a sudden it does like it did during the Obama administration and starts to tank, then we can pull the plug if we have to, and we probably should if it gets that low.
Do you actually bank that, or do you increase your operating expense and spend it?
No, this would be primarily a banking, because it's there would be
100% hard banking, or just maybe
all in his fund right now. He's got a bank of what?
What the discussion is, Jerry, is
about $2 million right now.
Once he gets that number in the bank, then what do you do with the extra 1.2 million?
Well, that's what
and that's what we're saying is what we talked about was just continuing to build fund balance.
Yeah.
Just build fund balance.
Well, that's what my gist is that just because we have extra money, you don't increase your spending and so forth.
And also, it's an extreme risk if we go to build another ICE facility. And, so we could reach a point to where if we build an ICE facility, all of a sudden we go out of business.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And it's very, right now we're doing good. It could change.
Unless you're under contract,
Yeah.
you're out in the woods.
Right.
Unless you
Yeah.
can pay cash for it. Now, a couple of years ago, Jerry, just by comparison, we were budgeting, 2.4 million for jail bed revenue. And, we just barely make it or sometimes not make it. So that's why we started backing that budget number down to 1.8, knowing he's going to make more, but that's going to
If you do build let's say if you were to build a facility, another 200 beds or something, you're increasing your local from 135 to 175 or something like that. If ICE went away, you could still use that facility. We might kill ICE, kill that expense, and you could still use that facility to put local.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is not what you want to do, but it's what you could do.
Right.
be way over designed for locals. In other words,
I understand
400
that.
prisoners, but we only have 100.
Yeah. We'll all be dead by the time we fill up 350
Hopefully.
locals, hopefully.
I hope.
I hope so.
You mentioned that you have, capacity for 30 more locals? How many more ICE inmates can you have?
About 20 more. If we get 130 ICE, that original, where we keep them at in the original jail was built for 133 beds. We get 130, we're packed in there.
But you can turn those down. You can say, I
Yeah.
can't take any more.
Yeah, we're almost at that point where I'm telling ICE, hold on, wait a minute, but we're taking them as much as we can.
But you can't, that's two separate jails.
Two totally separate jails, they can't even see each other. That's the whole thing. If we actually get up over 200 beds with local, then we're going to have to completely cut out ICE just to hold the overflow of locals.
Or build or expand.
Or expand.
Is it a modular type jail that you can just add a pod to relatively?
There are some. I wouldn't recommend it, but there are some.
That's what we're concerned with.
Seriously, I think we're going to be okay for a while, but I just want y'all to be looking to the future that population is going up. The local population is going up. We've got a while before we hit that mark, and next week when court date comes, we'll lose 10 or 12 people. They'll go off to prison, but it's back and forth. We're averaging about 160 to 170 right now, so we got we got a little bit of
What,
time.
what percentage of your people are drug in our local? What percentage of those folks are drug?
Probably 30 to 40%.
I would have thought it might have been higher, but
No, all of the drugs lead to other things, so they probably originally started at drugs.
Now, you and I also talked about possibly trying to use some money now to do some things that you would be nice, like the maintenance building.
Well, that, I've talked with Brian and Brandy about also our work camp program that we have,
That would
which,
be impact fee.
Yeah.
That'd be David,
yeah.
not Brian.
David, I'm sorry. But we've got a little portable building right now that we use for, work camp, work release. It's where they come in, they change out, it's like a locker room, and we have men and women that actually do it right now. It's kind of a make-do thing right now, and I would really like to get just a little simple block building that we can use as a office and a processing place for those work campers, because they save us a lot of money working out in the community, picking up trash, and every day we have.
We talked about using our impact fee dollars.
That'll
It's
cover
perfect.
most of it, but I was
Perfect.
talking about, like the maintenance facility, you obviously can't use impact fee for that.
It'd be nice to have build a
And I talked
little
to David
maintenance
about
facility.
this, if we could say, hey, we know you're gonna hit fund balance next year. Why don't we go ahead and let him spend some of that money now? Because it's not foreseeable that next year ICE is just gonna go away. I mean, it's not really a quote-unquote gamble, but, you know, that was just my thought.
I think it'd be a good idea.
That's something we need to start looking at and planning towards, and, one-time purchases are okay, it's just if you're
Yeah.
creating, something over and over again. That's the reason we want to burn the corrections, impact fees, probably put a little bit, that's a perfect thing to burn it off on, and then maintenance buildings, now we're getting them cheaper and cheaper, so I think we could do that out of this ICE revenue. I don't think I'd do it right now, it's something we can plan for next year.
At some point, instead of him figuring on budgeting, putting 1.2 million extra revenue, let's just let him put 1.1 and let
Yeah,
him spend
exactly,
$100,000.
exactly.
Those guys save a ton of money
Yeah,
maintaining,
Yeah, they
no doubt
do.
about it.
Absolutely.
and they maintain the ICE prisoner facility and the regular.
Maintenance of the building, maintenance of the cars,
You ever seen that place with the
Just-
two car lifts out there, and they install the radios and the squad
Yeah.
cars to save just tons of money?
yeah. They do a lot.
do they do the maintenance for our county?
No.
They're just
No,
for the sheriff?
just for the sheriff's department, they have a big enough fleet.
I can tell you that if there were county people, board employees working in the office that Pete Cochran, for example, is working in, they'd be chewing our ears off.
Yeah, we gotta do something, that is,
Well, look,
it's
a
yes.
utility store.
They may do with what they have for a long time, and it is.
It's time, and we've got the funding.
And then I don't think it'll cost that much to get a decent building.
I think we can probably swing some 1 cent sales tax money there, also match it up with some of the jail bed money, and that's a good, very good program.
Yeah.
For that. Also, Jared, you want to talk to them about,
Oh, yeah, one other thing. With thank you, David. With the local population going up, obviously there's more, we're making more arrests. We're going to continue to hold steady with the jail bed program. I don't see any problem at all with that. I think we're going to be good for several years with that, and we'll continue to manage the local population. But I just want y'all to be thinking about, there is like I said, when I first took office, we had 126 locals. We averaged about 115 to 120 back then, and I remember that because I was there. And the locals now are averaging 170. Does it mean there's more crime? I think it means we're arresting more people, and we're trying to get that off the street. But with that being said, I'm going to need 4 or 5 more people. I want one more person on every shift, or make a new shift to help the call. I don't have the stats, but I'll bring them to you for the next meeting. But I can show you the number of calls we answer are a lot more. The things that we're responding to are a lot more. And I don't know the percentage-wise, but I can find out, and I can promise you 5 more people is going to help me a lot. we may, it may help the county a lot, and I'm gonna be looking for that, hopefully, in the next budget year, so whatever we can use to, I know we don't wanna do reoccurring money on this ICE money, but if we could use half to fund it and, work something out, because I do need some more people.
Maybe we could, first year, if you need it next budget year, maybe pay half out of general, half out of jail bed, and the next year cut the jail bed out, so we're back. I don't want to use jail bed revenue to subsidize an ongoing expense that, I don't mind phasing it in, using jail bed to help phase it in, so we don't have to say we can't do the rollback rate this year because we got to give all that money to the sheriff's department. Now, he surely doesn't want that either, but
Nah.
That's just a thought. Maybe you could phase in over 2 or 3 years.
Well, yeah, and that's something we'll figure out some type of game plan and give you guys some options as to here's some possibilities on how to fund it.
Tell us, Jared, also the impact of the new legislation about security at schools. That's a big deal too, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and luckily we've got a school resource officer at every school right now until May 25th when the school period ends. That has been a big thing for us the last couple months.
What, 3 people?
Actually, we only had 4 school resource officers. We had one at the high school and all the middle schools. Now we got the elementary schools, and we added 6 other deputies. So there's a total of 11 schools that we have to cover.
The state's paying for that
Yeah.
now, right? They're giving David
Actually, the school board's giving us till the end of this year, $100,000 to cover those 6 or 7 school resource officers. But hopefully starting at the beginning of the next school year, it'll all be funded. So,
Do you foresee it becoming an unfunded mandate where they're going to pull the revenue, say you still got to have these officers?
I don't know.
Now the county's got to pay for it.
I don't know. That's still up in the air. We'll see.
'Cause that's 6 more people that the citizens, the taxpayers.
That is the school's responsibility to fund it right now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's not your responsibility to
It's the
provide them?
school. Nope.
So they could hire a private person?
They could.
And
They
they're
gotta have
already
all the
paying,
training.
they're already paying for the existing resource officers.
They
before
pay for half of the existing ones. We paid for that. That was only 4 people. We had a contract with them, so.
And that seems to be statewide. That seems to be a common thread. Half comes from the sheriff, half.
But this new legislation is, the school is to fund the other ones that we need 100%, so we'll see. Now, if you talk to the superintendent, he's gonna tell you different, that it's not, but it is. That's what it says.
And Leon County's got to have 30-some new ones. Are you seeing any strain of pulling your people away to fill?
Heck, yeah, it's a strain. It's a strain just to find 6 people to cover for the next 2 months. You can't just hire 6 people, put them at the school, because they're certified in law enforcement, they've got to go through the training. All the liability's on me. So we're pulling from people at the courthouse and stuff, putting them in the school for the next 2 months, and we're putting other people in those places, just backfilling till May 25th. So
Or corrections
we actually
officers,
hired.
Can they do it?
No, they got to be able to carry a gun to certified law enforcement.
Do you have an age limit on your hiring? No, Randy, don't get into
It's
that.
coming, Jerry.
You're looking for a new job?
You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it.
No. Don't go there, Randy. But do you have is there an age limit?
Well, you have to be 18 or 21 to go through the academy to be certified, so yeah. I mean, you've got to be a certified law enforcement officer too.
Okay.
How old? 21 and over.
Limit.
What's too old? Jerry, too
We don't
old?
discriminate.
It is.
I mean, I assume they got I guess what Jerry's kind of getting at is a retiree, do they have to meet they got to be able to run a 50-yard dash or something like
They
that?
got to pass all the criminal justice standards and training just like I do.
Yes, ma'am, I got you. So Jerry, you can't do it.
You can probably do it.
And you can't use, we have these volunteer officers now that, I guess we still have them that patrol around. They can't.
No, because they can't carry a gun.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
Yep. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jan.
While we're on, Constitutionals. Buddy, you got anything you want to talk about for budget? I was going to say, I've never known you not to turn down the mic.
I always need money. But really and truly, gentlemen, we're doing good. There's a lot of things coming around. We have moved in the technology world in the elections office a long ways. We've come a long ways. And we start out this year with all new equipment. And thanks to the county for taking care of that for me. There may be some things coming down the road. I've already signed up with Homeland Security. I did that back last June. I'm working on one that's called EI-ISAC right now for security scannings on our main server. Our election stuff is never sees the outside world because it's all standalone. The only time that anything would do that is in transmission of results back to the office. But we got that covered too. We're all paper. We don't have any electronic voting equipment anymore. And when it comes in, we take the tapes from the precincts and we verify the numbers against the numbers we report. So we know when it comes in, if there's anything wrong with it, it's going to show up because the tape's going to print out exactly what took place when they shut it down at the precinct. So there may be some cost down the road on some of the security stuff. Right now, we're getting it for nothing. The state is taking care of it because they want us all to be abreast of any type of security problems. Like I say, we've been with Homeland since last June. I get a report every Monday, and I can show you all of them. I've never had anything other than zero. We have had no vulnerabilities at all in our system. So that right there means a lot. But I did invest in another firewall this year in January because I just wanted to add a little more security, and there was one available that was a little bit higher technology than what we had. So I invested in it. That reoccurring cost right now with all of my IT stuff runs about $600 a month, where it used to be around $400. So I've increased it a couple of $100. I don't see an increase per se, other than probably the 2 to 3% we normally see in our Well, I'm trying to get a little more, Dave.
I know you are. You're like
in the
Greg. You're like
2%.
Greg back there, so just 2.
Just 2? Okay. As long, I don't see a problem. We should be able to maintain the way we are and continue our service to the citizens of the county for this next election term and hopefully right on up as far as it goes,
Thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Miss Cheryl, you're pumping out the concealed carries like crazy. Greg?
We must be doing pretty good for Cheryl not to have anything to say.
She's too busy to talk. She's really got a good program running, okay?
One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention is our 1-cent sales tax revenue, considering that was voted for by our citizens, just to do a little comparison. So in 15-16, we collected just over $2.3 million. Go to the next one. And not that far. 16-17, we had about a 3% increase. So that 1-cent sales revenue is creeping up about 3% each year. I only brought these 2 years because this is when you change the allocation to the percentages and reallocated throughout the different types of the tax, and so that's a really good comparison year over year. So
I thought we had 15 for parks. Am I wrong about that?
you were wrong about that. It used to be
It was the lower
5
number.
and you moved it to 10.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the new allocation, but in total, it's a 3% increase overall for the prior year. So that's trucking along really good. And as you can see with everything that's going on, we're spending it.
Yeah, that's the commitment that, we all make when we advertise and we went to the public on this. Is it doesn't do any good just to sit there. We need to put it into good, well-run projects for our county, and I think you're seeing the fruits of that out there right now, because everywhere you look, there's a 1-cent sales tax project going on.
What would a 2% increase in the park, what would that cost? About About 46,000, am I reading that right?
Probably somewhere around there, 30 to 40,000.
46.
Okay? All right.
Go. One of the other things that we've been looking at closely is our debt. And so we've got a couple different types of debt. We've got some capital equipment leases and our motor graders. We've got some facility debt related to our courthouse, and then now, of course, our new fire and EMS station. And we've got some enterprise debt related to our wastewater treatment plant and our landfill closure. So we're going to be looking at whether it makes sense to try to pay those off earlier or what makes the best sense. The courthouse sunsets, I think, in 2021, and it's paid from a special revenue fund that they collect in the court on certain civil and criminal cases. So we've looked at that. You know, with the fire and EMS station construction, we got the 1-cent sales tax bond there. So those are things that we're looking at to see if we can just make any improvements, do something better, just make sure we're aware of what's going on with those funds.
So the
I thought the courthouse,
There was two. One's paid, one's not, and sunsets in 2021.
Tax one is paid, it's the
Okay.
one that's the
So
special.
Special revenue
the
funds.
left is not paid for with 1-cent sales tax money?
We have been doing a small transfer that's being subsidized. It's about $20,000 a year, but that particular fund, the special revenue fund, is actually doing pretty good, so that may potentially go away in 1819.
when does it go away?
2021.
And how much is it a year?
Couldn't be much. I didn't know y'all had a
About
special.
200,000 a year, isn't it?
Okay, that's good enough. Just-
And that's paid for, it's $30 out of, Greg can explain it better, but it's $30 out of certain civil cases,
It's
uh,
a
crime prevention program. So one of the things we're gonna,
For every court case that applies.
What do we do with the money once that loan's paid off?
well, and it may, if that goes away, we've got to make improvements to additions to the courthouse. It may be that we come through and make another addition, if that's the case.
You will find as this county grows, they will need it always happens, they need a completely new facility. It just happens.
Well,
It is a restricted.
Greg, you know the program.
Come on up.
This is not your first meeting.
It's a special revenue fund. The funds are restricted. It's for state court facilities. So if you paid off the loan tomorrow and that money sat there, it would just sit there and build and grow.
Do they take it back?
No,
Use
they
it?
won't take it back. It'll just sit there and continue to grow until you have a court facility need, and then we could spend that money on it.
Okay.
And the revenue's, what, $40,000 a year? Is that right?
That one was 100.
100.
100 last year, okay, okay.
You're sitting with about a $90,000 fund balance, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened was there was a period of time where I guess those certain cases, we were getting fewer and fewer of those cases. Our estimate of what we would get each year was not meeting the principal balance, and so we had to use the 1-cent sales tax to supplement until those fees turned around, and they've turned around now.
Jared
Yes.
kept the rest of the people.
Right.
Well, and what we're wanting to do is make sure that if we're going to do any renovations, that we use those courthouse funds for that. We either build it up and pay it that one, or we borrow against those revenues.
Just as Jerry was talking about the way down the road, long-term picture, if you remember when we did the renovation, the last renovation, there was actually the judge at the time, the circuit judge at the time, was insisting that there would be a need for another courtroom. We have two courtrooms, and there needs to be a third. As the inmate population grows, so do the court cases, so do all the cases the judges are handling. We will eventually have, somewhere down the road, a third judge, and you'll need a third courtroom.
Circuit judge.
Well, I don't know if it'll be circuit or county, but
Count Jill as one of the
it'll
judges?
probably be, I am. Judge Sauls and you ask him, he'll tell you he did the work of two judges. And so that empty, it's a U-shaped courthouse, and so the plan was to fill it in, create a third courtroom on the second level, And we've already got the plans designed for that. We just didn't pull the trigger on building it and creating the shell.
That'd be right here.
So, yeah,
That wouldn't be very big, though, would it?
you would, well, I don't know the size of the square footage or anything, but you've got the design plans, you've got the engineering already done, and
One thing
that's
you-
your next
We
court
don't, we don't
facility.
need Perry Mason law, courtrooms,
One thing you'll find out, though, when
Well,
or do we?
go ahead, I'm sorry.
one thing you'll find out when the judge says, "I need more room," you will have to provide that room.
Correct. The
Because-
last time we needed court space, he said he was going to throw the 5 of y'all in jail until you built
Well,
it.
I came from where that, I came from where that happened.
Really?
It was right, it was touch and go.
So you built it.
They'll give him this building, they'll build us a new building.
The plan is for a sally port as well, with a separate elevator so that there's a safe way of bringing inmates in to go to the court facility. So there's a lot of design and planning. That's your next court
Yeah.
cost.
I got you.
And that court facility fund won't cover it. So you'll need 1 cent sales tax dollars to supplement it as well.
Don't think me too silly, but could they use this room for court?
They could.
You see the judge.
You'd have to ask the security officer on whether or not that would work.
This would be a jail.
See the judge.
Jared's in charge of everything. Whoops, whoop.
Commissioner Moore, it's $121,000 a year is the payment for the courthouse loan.
Yeah. If you go forward 10 years, you've raised $1 million on probably a $5 million facility coming up.
That's accurate. So David and I were looking at just reducing any debt where we could, where it was possible and it made sense, and to make sure we were going to be prepared for things coming down the road for the future, the jail, the courthouse. We already know we have a big issue with the administration complex due to the widening, so we want to put ourselves in the best position possible to be able to handle those things that we know are coming down the road.
Do you have an
We
estimate?
are actively pursuing land.
Do you have an estimate on what you will need and how much your cost will be? At what-
I haven't.
At what point in time will that be coming down the road?
5 to 8 years.
Yeah. That's something we gotta look at, and see cause what I'd like to do is we need to plan this entire, if we're fortunate enough to get the land that we're looking at, to plan this entire area here, because we gotta look at the entire area to make sure it makes sense and where we can consolidate things and make it cheaper. That's what we need to do, get out of these old efficient buildings.
You need to keep all your facilities in one location so that
Yeah.
the customer doesn't have to go all
Exactly.
over
I
town.
want to be able to, that would be nice to be able to walk in one and be able to hit everything they need to do.
Theoretically, you could tear this building down, somehow move the old jail, use the extra land and build a building here that would have the extra courtroom in it, and it would have all the county facilities.
Yeah, we could do that. That's what I'm saying. We got to look at the entire, I want to look at the entire thing before I say
They
here what
haven't
it is.
funded right-of-way acquisition, so it's at least, I'd say, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, it's at least 6, 7 years out. But we're moving forward with possible acquisition, so it's not that we're not working on that. That's the biggest thing, is get the land first, and then we'll worry about the rest of it.
DOT told us if we have a willing seller, they would be willing to go ahead and purchase the property.
Yep.
So to be able to move the building.
But we're looking at these, and like I say, especially with the debt service, we want to we're growing. The good news is our county's in a very good position financially. We're as good as we've ever been. I don't see that ending the way we're set up. Our revenues are diversified, so we can withstand. I think we'd have to pull back a little bit. We could withstand a recession without having to make major league changes. So we're sitting in a good position. So we do need to look at our debt service and continue to try to be very smart there, realizing like greater leases and stuff like that. That's something that it makes more sense to lease them because you get the buyback out of them. So anyway, we're gonna try to be one of those counties to be debt free one day. That's my goal.
Randy, we've got about $10 million in debt, but only about, 2 of it is
Two of it.
governmental,
Yeah.
everything else
Yes.
is sewer. and
Everything
land.
else is
Yeah,
any.
yeah, so we're really,
We're in good shape.
we're in a real good shape, so we're not complaining at all. It's just I'd like to get to that point where governmental-wise, that's a zero nut.
Given the potential that we may need some increased funding for the sheriff's part, for example, because of expanding services, is it possible we may not be able to go to rollback rate next year?
I wouldn't even think about talking about that yet.
Or we gotta pay for it somehow?
Well, I think we just gotta look and see what we think the revenues are coming in. We just instituted a new program to be able to help project what our revenues will be on the property appraiser side of it, and so it'll be interesting to see what that's gonna be in a
Of
couple
course,
of
the
months.
rollback rate means we generate the exact same dollar.
Well,
amount.
yes,
growth.
except for the growth, and so that's what we're gonna look at. That's the reason we're gonna look at what our new growth is, and that'll be hitting, so then I'll be able to answer
So
that
all
question.
these new houses and new commercial that
I don't-
pick up on the tax roll.
I mean, if we continue to go, right now, I'm not planning on, I plan on go to the rollback rate, that we're not assuming anything different, so. Any questions?
Y'all got any questions or any other things?
Nanette, question?
Sorry, I went way too far.
What about any citizens or staff have anything to say?
Here. Nanette's the only citizen here.
Yep.
That's right, you're a county employee.
Jessica, you don't want to talk?
Further discussion from the board?
Dan?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
All right, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming out. 15 minutes.
Go get something to eat, Chuck. If it stop raining, you can stand outside.
And you got first floor and third floor in
Mm-hmm.
say, turn it into first time.
Mm-hmm.
You've got administrative offices on 2 floors. Is this the variance?
Good to go.
You fill in
You're good.
Summer,
You're good.
it's the variance.
Nobody pulled
They
it.
want to continue
Nobody
it?
even talked about it. Good to see you. Nobody, you're good to go.
It would not take it would not fill all your administrative.
Still, that's very nice.